Hello, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Sunday, September 21st. It is week number 3. This is episode 78 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Another week ahead of us, another full slate of NFL games. Bills take down the Dolphins on Thursday night, and now we look forward to all of today's action. And tomorrow night, Ravens, Lions to close out week number 3. DiMari, lots to discuss. The season really starting to get into the swing of things. One more week of September, and then we're already into October after week number 4. Season, as always, flying by. How's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. A lot of good games on this week, especially some primetime games that I'm actually looking forward to. Thank you to the Bills, kind of starting off my week great. It's always a great week when Miami finds a way to lose. I know probably Buffalo for your sake, but um, yeah, with Buffalo's win, we have a lot of teams, Miami being one of those, but we have a lot of teams that seem to need to try to pick it up here, try to avoid some 0-4 starts, 0-3 starts, whatever the case is. A lot of coaches that may be in trouble. I know that's what we're starting off with. So let's get into that.
Yeah, and kind of on the Bills-Dolphins point, like it's kind of the point where the Bills are running away with the division again. No surprise there. Everybody knew that going into the season. So, watching that game, you're kind of just happy at this point just to see how low the Dolphins can get, how bad it can get. 0-3 next week, face the Jets on primetime. Hopefully that's 0-4. Does it get to a point where they actually fire McDaniel mid-year? I'm right there with you on just hoping on this Dolphins downfall and enjoying every little bit of it, because the hatred for the Dolphins is certainly right up there with the rest of the AFC East teams here as a Jet fan. But yeah, we'll get into here to start some hot seat coaching rankings, warm, hot, kind of that type of thing. With a couple different coaches, a couple different teams that are off to a couple bad starts. So hot, warm, and burning. Taking a look at really 4 coaches here, and then we'll get into some game previews or underdog picks as always later on. We'll start here, though. I guess we can kind of just list off a coach and then just explain burning, hot, warm. You can start this one off.
I'm going to start with Mike McDaniel, the team that we just talked about. I know Miami did not look too bad Thursday, if we're being honest. That game really came down to a very bad Tua decision, which throughout the course of that game, he honestly didn't play bad. But that just goes to show you one mistake can kind of alter a game, one mistake can end a game. And that, truthfully, is the best that they have looked, throughout the season so far. But for Mike McDaniel's sake, that seat has to be burning. They're 0-3 right now. And I know you look at Mike McDaniel's time in Miami, they've only had one losing season. But you kind of look at it's been a domino effect. It almost seems like where every year you're expecting Miami to be good. They are decent up until, November, and they kind of fall off. And we've seen it before. I believe it was last season or a year before where they were 8-3. Division was theirs. They kind of, fall off throughout the end of the year. Buffalo comes to Miami, wins that game. Miami wins the division, and it kind of tumbled downhill from there. So I think honestly for Miami, it's kind of just a sinking ship. You see the body language from the players. Tyreek Hill specifically does not want to be there. Tua looks defeated. Looks like the confidence is gone. McDaniel doesn't look confident in what he does. I mean, this used to be the same team I used to love to not really say love to watch them, but it was fun to watch them at 1 o'clock. Kevin Harlan calling the games. The offense was fun. It's none of that no more. It just seems like a dying forest, burning forest down in Miami, where I think both sides, McDaniel and the Dolphins, need to go their separate ways. Right now, they're 0-3. If they're sitting at 0-4, I think McDaniels is done. But as of now, that seat is burning.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'll start with McDaniel as well. I put him in the burning tier. You can make a strong case that these are moves that could have been made prior to this season, because we all kind of saw this coming with the Dolphins. Even Chris Greer, if you wanted to put into like a general manager tier of burning seats, he's right there with Mike McDaniel in terms of potentially losing his job. I don't know if they would do that midseason. Maybe that's something off season. But yeah, I mean, if they're 0-4 next week, lose to the Jets, and they look lifeless, and then after that too, just looking ahead a bit, Like then they play the Panthers. If they lose to the Panthers and they're 0-5, they got the Browns a little bit later on in their schedule. If McDaniel's still here and they lose to Cleveland and they're like 1-7, there's no way you can not just bring him back or just keep him next season, but there's no way that you can keep him for the rest of this season. Like that's something that it feels like middle of the year, something has to change. I've never seen a team check out this early with the Dolphins. I mean, they had a players only meeting after week number 1. I mean, that's unheard of. You never see that. And you're correct on the fact that I thought Tua actually played pretty well. I mean, I thought that game was going to be a complete bloodbath from the start. But they went down, they scored. It was actually entertaining game, and then Tua made the bad mistake late. But for a while there, he was taking what the defense was giving him. He was playing smart, turnover-free football, all that stuff. It was a close game going into the fourth. I don't think anybody saw that coming, and in the killer interception. But I'm right there with you in terms of McDaniel. This Dolphins team's a train wreck. Already 0-3, season's already over. I mean, there's no chance this team is going to get out of this. And out of all the coaches, he's definitely the most likely in terms of getting fired right now. But we'll see what Miami does. I mean, they've kind of gotten complacent in Miami in terms of just with management, McDaniel. Like these are moves, as I mentioned, that could have probably been made last year. They collapsed, like you said. Then they went into Kansas City, completely no-showed in that wild card game. This has been trending down now for really 2 years. This is year number 3 of this core just starting to really rot. So McDaniel definitely in the burning tier. I guess I could start with this next one. We can kind of rotate back and forth. I don't have another one in the burning tier as bad as Mike McDaniel, but I'm going to go one down here, couple in the hot tier. And I'll go with Brian Callahan in Tennessee to start here in the hot tier. Number one, he didn't know the rules against Denver. He didn't know that in itself is a fireable offense. And we talked about this at the end of last season, in the offseason, early parts of the offseason. You could have made a case for him to be fired after last year and completely just one and done, wipe the slate clean. The Will Levis experiment was a disaster. The team as a whole was a disaster. I mean, they had the number 1 overall pick for a reason. You could have made the case he could have been a one and done. He should have been a one and done because now you're in a situation with Cam Ward where you put yourself on a spot, fire the coach, 1 year with Cam Ward. Now you have to hire another coach. So Cam Ward next year has to go into year 2 with a new coach, new system. I just hate when teams do that with their quarterbacks, but it feels like we're in that trajectory right now with the Titans. I mean, this team isn't even competitive. They're not competitive. They got destroyed last week against the Rams. The Broncos game, the offense was terrible. They had Callahan with the post-game press conference embarrassed himself. They're a train wreck. I know they don't have much talent, but good coaches, at least offensive-minded coaches, sometimes can get more with less talent, scheming guys open, things like that. You haven't seen that. So Brian Callahan, to me, is the next coach. I think he'll last this season. I don't think they'll fire him mid-year, but there's no chance if they win 3 games. That's 6 wins in 2 years that he's back.
Yeah. And I'm right on board with you there. I'm going to pick up right where you said good coaches kind of find ways for their guys to be efficient, successful. Use Denver. We spent all last season, off season, completely bashing Denver, Zach Wilson jokes, all these type of things. And Sean Payton made them look good. This is a Super Bowl contending team. But going into last season, we're like, who is Marvin Mims? Who is Troy Franklin? Are we Bo Nix? Like 28-year-old Bo Nix, they're not going to be good. And Sean Payton found a way to flip that team. Callahan doesn't have that. He does not have that it factor. And I'm right on board with you. I know the weapons are awful. I mean, I can't name a weapon on that roster outside of Tony Pollard. I don't know who he throws the ball to. That says a lot. But I'm in agreement. I think it's hot. I kind of was leaning burning, but I think I'm going to go hot as well just because you do have Cam Ward there. And like you said, you don't want a new offensive coordinator going into year 2, but maybe that's what they need. that offense looks dead. It's lifeless. It's boring. There's no excitement. I mean, yeah, they kept Denver's game close, but if Denver doesn't turn the ball over 3 times, they probably lose by 30 points. Just fortunately, the defense played good. They looked awful last week. It's just nothing about this offense screams competitive anytime soon. And I think for the case of Callahan, the quarterback play, like you mentioned, has been unfortunate for quite some time. I mean, Will Levis, like you said, was completely awful. Was a Mason Rudolph experiment. Like it's
Yeah.
been bad for quarterback play. So you want to give the benefit of the doubt for Cam Ward. But and man, at some point they got to put up some points. They have to be competitive. But as of now, I think Callahan is hot. But I'm right with you. Right now they're sitting at 3-16. His record in Tennessee is 3-16. If they only win 3 games this year, you got to move on and you got to bring a new face in.
I'm right there with you. Totally agree. And I guess too, kind of to add on to what you were saying with the burning tier, I guess the reason why I'm not quite there as well is I guess there is a small chance where late in the season, I don't know, they win 4 of 6 games to close out the year and Cam Ward really starts to come into his own and play really well. And then maybe that would give him an extended lease on life in a way with Tennessee. But even then, I mean, what is that? A 5-win season if they win 4 of their last 6? Like, how many wins do they have entering like week 13 or week 12, whatever, down the stretch? So it's going to be really tough. And I'll just say this, not so much Brian Callahan, but more so just the spot that Cam Ward is in. I kind of feel terrible for the guy. He hasn't played that bad. He's got no help. He's got nobody around him. And the offensive line, he's taken 11 sacks. He's the most sacked quarterback right now through 2 weeks. He took 6 against Denver and 5 against the Rams. I know those are 2 good defenses, but come on now. Your rookie quarterback, you can't. They've been just letting him, kind of leaving him out there to dry. And for a rookie to take a beating like that in year number 1 in his first 2 games, take 11 sacks is terrible. Cam Ward, he's in a bad spot right now. He really is. He's in a really bad spot. Bad coaching, bad players around him. It's a mess with Tennessee, and they are clearly not going to be the Commanders or the Denver Broncos of the last 2 years, or even the Houston Texans 2 years ago as well, where they went on and made the playoffs and surprised with a rookie quarterback. That's not the case. I guess just on the topic of that, are you at all worried of like Cam Ward and his development moving forward, not just from the coaching angle, but the spot that he's in just from the roster perspective? I mean, taking hits, the weapons, all that stuff.
Absolutely. The way this team is constructed is awful. I mean, I think we've all been there. Do you remember as a kid, you probably had like a project due the day before school? You go wake your mom up, like, hey, I have a project due. That is that roster. It's like, it seems like they did absolutely nothing. Yes, they drafted, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but the receiver out of Stanford, who had a very good career at Stanford.
Yeah. Alec Manor, I think it is.
Yeah. You still have really there. Pollard's not too great. I know Tajay Spears is injured. Like, they have a few names, but a lot of those guys, that's wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, maybe running back 2 or 3 on a playoff or Super Bowl team. This roster is awful. Offensively, they are awful. So yeah, I'm worried about Cam Ward and his development. Because I mean, you look at the talent that he had in Miami last year, and I know it's college, it's a bit different, but you saw what he could do with guys that were capable of making plays. He doesn't have that right now. And you just said it perfectly, and I'm going to re-mention it. They don't have the type of offensive system to kind of scheme guys open to be efficient. So it's like it's a lose-lose either way. So honestly, I know we both said hot, but I think for Cam Ward to develop, either A, Callahan needs to go, or they need a new offensive coordinator. And I know the guy they just hired was the receivers coach in Tampa last year. So you want to try to give him some benefit of the doubt. But through the first 2 weeks, I mean, this looks like a Pop Warner offense that will not be successful anytime soon.
Oh yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I mean, there's a couple of guys on this team that I don't even know if they would make it in Pop Warner as well. I'm just thinking though here, Like when you look at coaching records, and I could probably look it up right now, but just off the top of my head, I mean, if Callahan does go on this year and win 6 games, right? Or win 3 games and they win 6 games total. I mean, that's got to be, when was the last coach that was like that bad in a 2 year span? I mean, Gaze won 9 in 2 years. Uh, Anybody less? Like, I'm trying to think of recently fired coaches that were like Callahan. If he wins 3 games, you're talking about historically, what is that? 6-26, right? In 2 seasons.
The only
That's
other
horrific.
one, which spoiler here, I'm probably gonna say it a little early because I have this one written down. The only other one that would be in that similar category is Canales.
Yes, you are right. And we'll get to him here. And that's
Yeah,
actually a perfect segue. But yes, Dave Canales, you are right in terms of he's what, 5-14 right now?
5-14 right now. Yes.
Um, yeah, that's a good one. And yeah. So I guess we can transition into that. Did you want to begin with Canales and then we'll dive into our last one after?
Yeah, and there's so starting on Dave Canales, there's something you said about Callahan that kind of set me up for this one where you mentioned, they win 4 of the last 6 and they kind of see this rise of what could be. We see it in Detroit, what happens there. And I think that resurgence last year for the end of Carolina is why Dave Canales right now is I have him at warm. I don't have him at hot. I have him at warm, even though Carolina's an iffy team. This was a team I thought was going to be pretty good coming into the year. I thought they would maybe win 9 games. And look, we're still early. We're only in, week 3. It's still early, but they're weird. One week Carolina looks completely awful. They get the doors blown off of them, and then last week they go into Arizona and they keep their game close until the end. And they lose offensive breakdowns from the offensive line, giving up sacks at the end of the game where it matters. But defensively they look good. Offensively they picked up. Um, Canales has to be warm. I mean, I think Bryce Young is going to play a lot better here on throughout the stretch. But as of now, he hasn't looked too great for Carolina. It seems like they have the weapons. Chuba Hubbard, very good back. You drafted, I forgot that guy's name, just like that. He's Tech. You drafted Tech.
McMillan, yep.
You have Leggett, who hasn't looked well. A lot of things that I've seen on him, like tape and film wise, it's like a lack of effort from him. I don't know what's going on there, but it's like they have guys, they have pieces that you think they can be good. They just have to put it all together. So I think for Canales is warm. Like you mentioned, you're 5-14 so far. You're still trying to see what you get from Bryce Young. I don't think you move on quite yet, but similar to Callahan, if you're looking at maybe 4-5 wins, I think you might want to consider moving on.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna put him in the warm tier as well. And you're totally right in terms of kind of the Detroit Lions rise that I felt like they were on a little bit after last season. And I guess why I'm going to avoid putting him in the hot tier right now is like you look at that 2022 Lions team when they finished 9-8 and they just missed the playoffs, but they had that great stretch later on in the season. And then they went on the next year, title game, we all know, and now they're here now. Carolina is kind of in like that 2022 phase where if they can win 8 to 9 games, next year could be their year where they really take off, make the playoffs. That Lions team started the year 1-6, and it was ugly. I mean, there was even a couple games where they were getting blown out. It was ugly. It didn't look good. It kind of looked like we were in for Dan Campbell winning like 5 games in 2 years and getting thrown out of there, and that would be the end of it. Obviously, that was far from the case, but they ended up turning it around. So there's still time for Carolina to turn around. And like you said, I think last week was positive for Bryce Young and the fact that for the most part, I mean, he threw for over 300 yards, had the 3 touchdowns, but the interceptions here have been a little bit of an issue. I mean, it's the 3 in 2 games. You've got to see more consistency from him. You've got to see more of the last season Bryce Young as opposed to these kind of up and down waves with him where he's looks good, looks bad, looks good, looks bad. I mean, with Bryce Young, it's getting laid out early. It's year 3. The time is kind of now to go out there and consistently week in and week out and play like not even a number 1 overall quarterback, but just play consistent above average quarterback play in the NFL. And if he can do that, they're going to be in a position to win games. That's what he was doing last year. He was just competent down the stretch. And they were winning games, or at least they won a couple games, but they were close in a lot of other games. Yeah, I think he's warm as well. I think they've got to start. It's a results driven business at the end of the day. And he's got 5 wins in 19 games, which is pretty bad. They've got to start winning games, and they've got more talent. You hope to see McMillan start to kind of round into form, Leggett as well. Hubbard, we all know what he was able to do last year, off to a little bit of a slow start this year from a rushing perspective, but does have the 2 receiving touchdowns. Carolina is such an interesting spot because, like, what do you feel is, I guess, the floor for Canales this season? What if Bryce Young starts to play really well? He throws, I don't know, 23 touchdowns, but they're losing games. They win 4 games, but he goes out there and has a great year. Do you split them up? That's what's really interesting with this whole Panthers thing. A lot of it hinges on, what Bryce Young ends up looking like.
Yeah, I mean, I think for that sake, if he goes out and throws 23, and you said they win 4 games, also depend on the interception numbers. I think you want to try to keep them together, because then you might take that angle of, well, how did the defense look in those games? Or numbers could be deceiving as well. He could throw for 2 touchdowns a game, but they're only scoring 14 points, 2 touchdowns, and maybe had 9 possessions throughout the game. So I think you have to look at it a little deeper. But I mean, if you are getting 23 touchdowns from Bryce Young, let's say they somehow win 7 games this year, they're sitting at 7-10. I think you build off of that and you bring him back for another year, maybe bring in some more weapons and see where you can go from there. And I know you hate this. This is your pet peeve, but next year, if you're sitting at 5 weeks and it's not working out, then you move on from the coach, then you move on from the GM, which doesn't help your quarterback, but in some cases you have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I would just preach a little bit of patience in Carolina. That's why I'm putting him in the warm tier. Like, I think Leggett can't be this bad. Yeah. He can't be. Like, he can't be this bad the rest of the season. McMillan's made some plays, but and Chuba Hubbard from the rushing perspective, I mean, he's had 3.7 yards per carry. Rushing wise has been a little bit down. You assume he's closer to last year's form than what he is now. So they've also just had some bad performances coming up. And look, I mean, they've got a couple winnable games. I mean, they've got Atlanta today, which is tough. But after that, you have New England. They're by no means a juggernaut. And then you have Miami after that, which from Miami's perspective, Carolina kind of looks weak, but same thing kind of from Carolina's perspective. So, yeah, Canales is interesting. They've got to get better. They've got to start winning. But I think if we're here in 3 to 4 weeks and they're 1-5 and Leggett looks terrible and Bryce Young's turning the ball over a ton, then I think you probably put it into the hot tier, maybe, and eventually the burning tier after that. And if you're going to fire him, you just do it at the end of the season. Like you said, I would not go into the season and 5 weeks into next year just blow it up. I've never understood that for a second. What's the point in giving a coach, and I saw it with the Jets last year, right? I just never understood, if you're not going to fire a coach after the season, what's the point in giving him 3 games the next year and then firing him? If you're only going to give him 3 to 5 games that next season and say, if they're 2-3 or 1-4, I'm firing them, just fire them once the season ends. Like, you can't go into that next season and say, you know what, if the teams get off to a slow start, we're firing them. No, just avoid that whole possibility and make a change, because it obviously shows you don't trust them.
Well, here's the tricky part. There's another Dan Campbell situation. I think the first year they went 1-15, and then they turn around, and if they would have fired Dan Campbell at even 1-4, we don't get the Lions that we get right now. I know it's a lot harder, which it kind of seems like this trend in the NFL, like the last few years ish, have been coaches kind of stepping in and finding instant success. We've seen it a lot. I'm gonna use Scotty for example. Dallas, obviously, we're not 2-0, but even in that loss to Philly and that win last week, you see like the guys want to play for the coach. You look at that team and you say, okay, these teams are gonna be good. Dan Quinn last year with the Commanders throughout that kind of season, you look, this team is going to be good. We've seen it with Houston, but there's other teams like Tennessee where you're just like,
They're
there's no
not
chance
good.
this team's ever going to be good. This
Yeah.
is not going to work out. So it's like, what scale do you measure it off of it to the point of I'm going to give you some time to figure this out, or the leash is short and we're going to get rid of you because again, you don't want to run into another. Well, you don't want it to be a possible resurgence like Dan Campbell did. You move on from the guy, and now you set your franchise back another 3 years. So I think it's a lot trickier than what it is. I do agree with you, but like Callahan's sake, you don't bring him back next year if they're not winning games. They're not going to figure it out. But some guys, you kind of got to be a little more lenient.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing is, I guess, is the Dan Campbell was like, that was one season.
Yeah.
Like Callahan, that's 2 years already. That's 6 wins in 2 years. Let's say they win 3 games. Bringing them back, it's insanity. It's just, let's bring it back for more. And I don't want to bring up the Jets too much, but the whole Saleh thing, 3 years, it was the disaster. We really thought year 4 was going to be any different. And I get the whole Rodgers angle, but that was all a train wreck either way. Or no, he was here for 4 years, but or 4, 3.5, 4, whatever you want to call it, however you want to put last season. Yeah, it's always tricky with head coaches. My biggest issue with the coaches is the whole, not just the firing mid-year with, a young quarterback or whatever. Like McDaniel, Callahan, if they're not fired during the season, which I don't think Callahan will be, I think Campbell will, or not Campbell, excuse me, McDaniel will be. The biggest issue to me is the whole firing one with like a rookie quarterback after year 1. You should have just fired. Like Callahan should have been a one and done, wipe the slate clean. But they got a new GM as well, Borgonzi. You were going to move on from the GM, just move on from the coach. Don't half do it. Just blow the whole thing up, restart, and build around Cam Ward. But I guess either way, the Tennessee, I mean, that they're learning. I mean, they're never going to be good right now. All right, moving on to the final coach is an interesting one, and they'll play tonight, and we'll get into this game here in a little bit. Brian Daboll. The Giants are in one of the more stranger situations in the NFL from a management perspective on what they're going to do and the, I guess, temperature on Joe Shane's and Brian Daboll's seats. Because to me, and I'll kind of swing it back to you here in a second. To me, what ultimately is going to decide Brian Daboll's fate is not what is happening right now. It's going to be what happens when Jackson Dart takes the field. They could be 0-10, and Jackson Dart takes the field and looks great, and they're probably bringing Daboll back. That's the way I view it. If they're 0-10 and Jackson Dart takes the field and he looks terrible, Daboll's gone. How do you kind of view that the same, or do you view it just as no matter what Jackson Dart looks like, because he's going to play at some point this year? We already knew that, but especially now that they're on the brink of being 0-3, they're definitely going to play him at some point this year. Even if they were competent, there was a good chance that they were going to play him at some point this year. Where do you stand with the whole Daboll thing? Personally, I'm having a really tough time between the warm and hot, because I think he's warm right now, but I think once Jackson Dart takes the field, he goes right onto the hot seat, because what Jackson Dart does ultimately is, to me, is going to dictate his long-term fate. That's how I view it.
I'm right on board. Before I get into that question, I just want a slight rant here. I think I'm just tired of the Jackson Dart infatuation, and not because I don't think he's going to be good, but it's just like we saw the same thing the last few years with JJ McCarthy, and we want JJ and get rid of Sam Darnold, and that offense sucks. The Vikings offense
they
sucks.
do suck.
JJ McCarthy looks awful. If it wasn't for
The
a very
Bears.
incompetent Caleb Williams, we're talking about what are they? Oh, because they lost at Atlanta. Yeah, we're talking about 0-2, where the offense has not looked good. Does Justin Jefferson still play for the Vikings? I'm just curious. Does TJ Hawkinson, by the way, who's on my fantasy team, 2 weeks in
Carson
a
Wentz
row,
does.
Carson Wentz does. And before I even get into, I'm going to get into that one next. But TJ Hawkinson, who's the fate of my fantasy team record has come down to him 2 weeks in a row, absolutely doing nothing. And at the end of the day, the quarterback has to throw you the ball. Same with Jefferson. JJ McCarthy has not looked good. So it feels almost like it's on the same pattern, same trajectory of, we're going to take what they did in preseason and we're going to hype it up and they're going to get in the game and they're not going to look good. Guess what? In the preseason, teams are only running so many coverages. They're only sending so many blitzes at you. There's only so many packages that you are seeing compared to a regular season game. Now, last week, I'm going to go Russ. I'm going to go Dallas. Jackson Dart loses that game by 40. I don't care what anybody says. I know Dallas defense stunk it up last week, but Jackson Dart does not keep the Giants in that game like Russ did. And I know they end up losing that game, and the turnover at the end of the game really, hurt them. But I mean, Russ looked like Seattle. That's the best version of Russ I think I've ever seen. That put Russ in the MVP conversation, that game alone of how well he played. Jackson Dart is not stepping in and not doing that. So, to your question now, it does depend on how Jackson Dart looks, but you can't force Jackson Dart onto the field. And I mean, we kind of seen it last year with Justin Fields and Russ again, where Fields looked great. You put Russ in there, Russ looks up, he looks down, and it's like, why did they ever move on? And I feel like it's going to be that same situation. Yes, they're sitting at 0-2, and their schedule has been tough. You had Washington, which you didn't look great. You had Dallas, which, as we can see, Dallas is going to be a very competitive team. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs right now, but competitive. And I know the Chiefs are sitting at 0-2, and we're going to get into that game later. But then you have to play Kansas City against what we know Patrick Mahomes is capable of. Like, that's not an easy schedule for the Giants. So you don't want to just throw Jackson Dart in there just because everyone's calling for him, and then he looks bad. Russ's confidence is down the drain. Like, their situation in New York is so weird right now because everyone wants Jackson Dart so bad, but he's not guaranteed to be good. We're seeing it right now in Minnesota. But sorry I had to rant there a little bit. I'm kind of just tired of it because the whole thing with JJ over again, and it just goes back to what I've always say. Let's judge people on what they have done and not what we think they will do. Because Jackson Dart got in the game, he did a nice handoff to Scatterboo last week. Okay, great. How's he going to look in a game like last week in a complete shootout against Dak Prescott, against Jalen Hurts, against, top tier quarterbacks, not Jalen Hurts too much, but top tier quarterbacks in the NFL. But sorry, long rant there. I am in agreement. It kind of depends on when they do play Jackson Dart, because I agree they will. How he looks is what determines Dable's future moving forward. But for the Giants' sake, Jackson Dart has to look good. They have weapons. Wan'Dale Robinson has to look great. I've always thought he's been pretty underrated. We know what Neighbors is. You got to get the running game going a little more with Scatterboo, who did look good last week, but get Tyrone Tracy involved. And we don't have to talk about that front seven. Their defense is phenomenal. The secondary is kind of toast. But hey, if you can rush the passer, you don't need great corners too much. But this is really going to depend on, like you said, how well they kind of look down the stretch when Dart does take over. But I am going to say this, and I want people to come back to this. Do not force Jackson Dart in there just because everyone is excited to see what he can do. That offense can build off of last week, and I think they will continue to do so. Don't rush him into the starting spot like that. That's going to lead to Dable getting fired.
I'll say this. This all could have been avoided with the Bubbs or Blair, whatever you want to call me, school of coaching or firing if they just moved on after last season.
Absolutely.
This all would have been avoided, which I always kind of like Dable a lot more than most. Now, I will say most people in this area, talk shows, callers, fans, the temperature in the New Jersey, New York area is it's hot on Dable, it's hot on really everything with the Giants in terms of just the whole situation. And there are a lot of people, I will say, that want Dart to start even after last week. One of the more interesting things with the whole Giants I could see is like Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator. I mean, this last week, there's been a lot of heat towards him and, letting up 40 against Dallas and all that stuff and letting them get into field goal range with Aubrey late there. Is I could see a world where he actually ends up getting fired middle of the year as kind of like a scapegoat for Dable. And then if things don't get better, then Dable, that's kind of it. If they're 0-4, though, I would throw, I've said this a while, that New Orleans game week 5 could be when we see Dart. If they lose tonight, lose next week against the Chargers, which is very likely, they're 0-4. That's where you could see Dart, because that's a softer landing spot. Yes, it's on the road, but it's against the Saints. I mean, the Saints they're not making the playoffs. They're a bad team. Although Rattler actually hasn't played that bad, I will say he's actually been okay. Not good enough though for them not to draft a quarterback, and certainly not good enough to take them out of top 5, top 3 pick range most likely. But the one thing I will say about potentially putting Dart into that game is then they got a short week after that against the Eagles. So that is asking a lot out of a quarterback to, yes, New Orleans is a soft landing spot, but then it's like, okay, hey, 4 days later, you got to turn around and play the defending champions. So that's what's tough about that. It's really interesting. Now, there will be Giants fans that would tell you that last week they would win that game with Dart because he would make smarter decisions than Russ throwing up the moon ball for the interception in overtime. I've heard that already.
The moon ball that Russ threw literally won them the game. It literally won them the game.
Yeah.
Luckily, we just have the best kicker in football that can hit a field goal from the moon. So, I mean, Russ threw that moon ball, I believe, 6 times.
My
4 were
leading scorer in
completion, or
fantasy, by the
7
way.
times. Russ, who would have thought? Who would have thought? And I mean, I know the Russ, topic over the course of just the last few years, his time in Pittsburgh and then this year, he hasn't played bad. He really hasn't played bad. I know they kind of fizzled out his, referring to Pittsburgh last year. Towards the end of the year, looked completely awful, losing 4 straight, losing a wild card. But Russ has not really played too bad. That's just my opinion. So I'm not really understanding where this force, we need Jackson Dart, get Russ out of there. It's coming from, like, yeah, he didn't look good against Washington, but then you torched Dallas. That's the NFL for you. Some weeks you're going to look great. Some weeks you're going to look awful. That doesn't mean you instantly just move on and go with your rookie quarterback, especially with the schedule you have coming up.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I think a lot of the Jackson Dart, Russell Wilson stuff, I think, is just Giants fans so hungry to want to know the answer, not only on Dart or get a peek at Dart, but also really find out what Dable's all about. Because like if Dart's not any good, then this prized pick, Dable's guy, I mean, they pretty much made a documentary on them drafting Jackson Dart on their social pages and stuff. I mean, they filmed the meeting with him and Dable and how impressed Dable was of his knowledge and his retaining of plays and coverages and all that stuff. Like, that was his guy. Dable was banging the table for him. I think people want to just see, I guess that's kind of what it is. People just want to see if he can take what the preseason is. But I agree in the sense of I don't know. They can't play much better than they played last week offensively. They can't, and they still lost.
They're going to play.
Yeah, and they still lost, which is just typical Giants fashion in the last couple of years.
Can I throw another piece in there too? We talk about, okay, the thing is, they gave up 40 to Dallas, but you held Washington to 21 points. Washington was a top 8 offense last year. Week 1, people kind of start slow. Everyone's not going to look great. But Washington did not look great against that defense in week 1. You just happen to play a Dallas team that I think we have kind of known what Dallas could always be with the run game. We've always known what Dak Prescott is. If you look away from the the star on the helmet and the forced Dak Prescott hate, that's the top 8 quarterback in football. If you really know ball, you know that. And we
Yeah.
knew with George Pickens coming over, okay, how will this offense look? Dak now has 2 weapons. CD is more kind of free to kind of do his thing. Dallas needs a run game. We see this Dallas team with a run game finally. Of course, it's going to be a very good offense. So I mean, I don't understand where I guess the defensive coordinator, the defense is so bad when this was a Dallas team for three like the last 4 was top 5 in offense with Mike McCarthy there. We just didn't see that last year, but it's just like this offense didn't come out of nowhere. This offense just back into the form they were when they were winning 12 games and making it to the playoffs. So for the Giants fans to sit here and talk about the defense just being so bad and this, and that, that's the NFL for you. Some weeks your defense is going to look completely awful, and other weeks your defense is going to be, the 85 Bears. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
But you can't be ready to move on because a top 8 offense torched you at home. It happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was actually a report that came out earlier in the week from Tony Pauline, who is like a New York sports reporter. He's been around for a while. He's kind of, actually, I think he covers anything, to be honest. But he's been known over the years for some like giant hate pieces, just crushing the teams with some of his reporting. He's not very well liked. And there's been a lot of false reports from him. He tends to exaggerate. But there was a report actually a couple days ago about Dable's job that he said Dable's job was hanging on by a thread. I don't know how much I believe in that, just the history of Tony Pauline and the reporting, especially with the Jets and Giants. He tends to take something that he hears and just Dable's going to be like, he might hear a source say, oh, if the Giants are 0-6, Dable's going to get fired. And he'll turn that into, if they lose to Kansas City, Dable's fired. No, like that's not true. But I don't know. The Giants are in such a weird spot, a tough spot. And it's at the end of the day, we talk about the whole results driven business. Like even if, and that's the thing, like even if Jackson Dart plays well, but they're losing and they win 3 games, are you really bringing Dable back? I guess if Jackson Dart plays well, that's what's so, and that's where Dable would then maybe have to force and fire like Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator, or make staff changes to kind of as scapegoats. But it's really, really strange. Back to the whole point of them making the playoffs killed them. That year, long term, destroyed them. Which, who knew that making the playoffs could hurt you? But it did, because that put them in a spot to extend Daniel Jones. Then you went into that disaster for the next 2 years. That put them in a spot to make moves like Darren Waller to try and go, I don't want to say all in, but make going from the playoffs and winning a playoff round turn into fighting for the division and all that stuff. So, and now we're here. I mean, he's won 18 games in 3 years. That's bad. And 9 of those came in year 1. So it's been 9 wins, or he had 9 wins in the last 2 years. Because he won 6 in 23 and then 3 last year. So it's, you take away year 1, he's won 9 games. It's ugly, but very, very odd spot. So we'll see what happens there. Anyway, we're moving on here to some of these games, and we'll get into our underdog picks all kind of in one segment here. Eagles, Rams today, 1:00 at the Link. Eagles back home after beating the Kansas City Chiefs last week. Rams 2-0, win against the Texans, and in a blowout win last week against the Tennessee Titans. They'll hit the road for the second week in a row here. Little NFC divisional round rematch. Still a game that I think we both believe Eagles would not be Super Bowl champions if that game wasn't in the snow. I strongly believe that. What are your thoughts going into this one? This is a great game, great one of the top games on the slate. Anytime you get a playoff rematch, but even just the two good teams, Rams off to a good start, Eagles off to a good start. You had the Eagles tush push criticism again this week after some of the slow-mo replays that we saw last week of supposed jumping off sides on the offensive line. The tush push every single week, it feels like it's a talking point. Jared Verse, we all remember that last year. The trash talk, he returns to Philly. Lots to look forward to in this game. Devontae Adams coming off of a big week, and he can continue that. What are your thoughts going into this one?
Jalen Hurts will have to beat the Rams today. I don't think Saquon's going to do it. He rushed for 460 yards in the two games combined last year. Mm-hmm. I believe Sean McVay would die by the sword of letting Jalen Hurts beat them before Saquon runs all over them this time. And even with Saquon's performances, they kept those games, at least the divisional game, fairly close. Lost by 17 when they met earlier on in that season. But different outcome today. I think the Rams win it. This is the Rams team. Again, I said they're going to the Super Bowl. And I'm still on that. They have looked defensively where we thought was a question mark coming into the season. They have looked pretty good defensively. I think this is the week. I mean, I know I made a comment earlier where I say when we're talking about top-tier quarterbacks, we refer to Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott. At the end of the day, yes, you're winning games, but you're not winning many more NFL games throwing for 120 yards. Not the case, and that's not going to happen today. So if Philly wants to come out with the W, Jalen Hurts is going to have to beat the Rams with his arm. I don't see that happening. So spoiler there, give me the Rams to win today on the road.
Yeah, the Rams have got to learn from last year, make Jalen Hurts beat you. Because last year it was Saquon Barkley, and some more Saquon Barkley, and Hurts as well with his legs. Got to learn from that. Is AJ Brown going to do anything in this game? Is he even going to he hasn't shown up. I don't even know if he's on the team.
What was the guy's name again? He's going to have to. I mean, he played very well against them both times last year. You probably could say torched them last year. He was a huge part of, the success they had going on, just to down the field throwing the ball game the few times Jalen Hurts did. But it has to show up, because my concern, and I'm not going to rant too much on it, my concern with Philly is when you get to a situation in a game where the run game is not going, what is going to happen offensively? Are they completely just roll over and struggle, or is Jalen Hurts and the receivers be able to take over that game? Luckily for Philly, we haven't seen that too much quite yet, even though last week they didn't look great all around offensively. The Chiefs, their offense just sucked. So that worked out in Philly's favor. But a game like I'm predicting today where they don't run the ball too well, what can your top 5 quarterback and your weapons do to kind of balance that out? And I think we'll find it out today.
Yeah, and I think with the whole pass game situation, Saquon's not going to have the year he had last year. You've already kind of seen that through 2 weeks. So there is definitely going to be weeks where Saquon is going to get shut down. Saquon's going to get contained. I mean, you kind of saw that a little bit in week number 1. He did have the rushing touchdown, but I think he only averaged 3.3 yards per rush. He only had 60 yards total. It was more so, they had that late fumble with the Miles Sanders fumble, which was a big blow. They had a couple of those back-breaking turnovers, and Hurts as well with his legs made some plays in that game, but he didn't throw for any touchdowns. There wasn't much through the air. Jahan Dotson was that team's leading receiver in week number 1. Yeah. And last week, the Chiefs offense was terrible. The point I'm trying to make here is the Eagles haven't had that dominant game yet. They haven't looked dominant yet. It's been 2 close games, 2 close wins, where Hurts barely threw for over 100 yards last week. He threw for 101 yards. And in week 1, he threw for 150. So, for this Rams team, you've got to be able to stop the run and force him to throw and put him in passing situations, and also this, you've got to keep the Eagles in 3rd and long, because once you get into the 2nd and 5, 4 yards, 3rd and 1, tush push, it's over. And that's my big thing with the tush push is you've got like teams have got to be able to. It's not so much stopping the tush push. It's more so getting the Eagles out of those situations where they can utilize the tush push. You've got to keep them third and it's not even 3rd and 1, but more so like 3rd and 5, 3rd and plus, obvious passing downs, because even 3rd and 4 they can run it and convert. 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, your 3rd and longs where you're forced Jalen Hurts to pass, forcing Jalen Hurts to make a play with his arm. And that's your recipe to success. That's what needs to happen more. Instead of the whole banning of the tush push, don't have the Eagles in situations every single drive to do the tush push. That's kind of my way of viewing it. Kyron Williams, does he reach the end zone in this one? Big fantasy football trade.
For the people out there, I decided to trade Bijan Robinson for Kyron Williams and Josh Jacobs. Explain it another time, but I need Kyron to touch the end zone this week. Just want to see him get going, not even from a fantasy standpoint, but kind of mentioned to you off air. He's had the touches. We're talking about with 18 plus, 20 plus each of the last 2 weeks. Just needs to get more involved in the passing game. We've seen him a lot last year in the passing game, not too much this year, and just hasn't reached the end zone. But I think today has to be the day that he does it.
Yeah, and I think that's another point too with the Rams offense or Rams team just in general, that's more credit goes to the defense, is their offense is, I mean, last week they broke out and they had, a really good performance, 33 points, all that stuff. Stafford almost passed for 300 yards, and you had a big game from Puka, you had a big game from Devontae, but Devontae didn't do much in week number 1. Kyron Williams hasn't quite been Kyron Williams that we saw last year yet, and yet here they are, they're 2-0, and they've got an opportunity here to get to 3-0 and put themselves in a spot to beat the defending champions and really take over. And I think that's where you got to give a lot of credit to this defense, is even as this offense has had some inconsistencies early, they've been able to overcome it and win and put themselves in a spot to pick up a big win today. I guess I'll throw the Rams out there as well. I'll say Rams win this one. More so, I guess, the anti-Eagles inside of me. However, I did predict the Eagles to get to the Super Bowl. By the way, my Super Bowl pick is looking terrible right now because it's not so much the Eagles, but the Bills, to me, this is their year. And maybe, am I maybe saying this too early because they'll probably end up finding a way to lose, but there is no chance. Who's better than the Bills right now in the AFC? The Chiefs look terrible. They already beat the Ravens. The Bengals are without Burrow.
It's
like,
Baltimore.
If this isn't the Bills' year, then when is it?
And it's not even Baltimore looks better than them. That's the only competitive force. I think the Chargers, the Broncos, and we'll talk about this later on this season. They go into Buffalo, they lose. I think they lose. Yes. I think the Bills do it this year. They're going to have to do it this year. I think I predicted Bills, Rams anyways, but just looking good. Yeah. It's looking good so far, but I'm right with you. If the Bills don't get it done this year, I don't see them getting it done ever.
Yeah. I feel like we've said that every year, but
that's what it seems like.
Here we are again. Here we are again with the Bills. Gosh, being a Bills fan, it's got to drive you crazy every single year. Right at this time, too. You're 3-0, 4-0. I mean, the Bills, you look at their schedule, there's a good chance they're 7-0 going into that Chiefs game. They've got New Orleans, New England, Atlanta, by Carolina. Like, their schedule is incredible. And then after that, Kansas City game, they get Miami, which is a win. Tampa, home in November. That's a rough spot for Tampa. Going into Buffalo in November. Not quite December, but still. Warm weather team in a colder environment. Houston on the road. I mean, Houston doesn't look good. Then you get Pittsburgh. I mean, at that point, I'm really intrigued on where Pittsburgh's going to be at in like November. Yeah. I really am. I'm all on board of the Pittsburgh. They're like 2-7 and Rodgers looks terrible. And it's just the 2024 Jets all over again in Pittsburgh. I would love that. But we'll see. Anyway, a couple other notes here. We kind of talked a little bit about it with the Giants. The Giants angle, we've covered a lot of that. Chiefs, though, Sunday night tonight at MetLife against the Giants. Prime time. 0-2, lots at stake here. Chiefs looking to avoid an 0-3 start. Mahomes, I don't know. People have labeled this game, if the Chiefs lose, it's officially the end of the dynasty. I don't know if I buy that, but it is probably about the most important week 3 game that the Kansas City Chiefs have played since Patrick Mahomes has taken over at quarterback. That's what it feels like. What are your thoughts on that? And if the Chiefs lose, is this really like the crumbling end? Because then they got a Baltimore next week. You're staring 0-4 right in the face.
I would say yes for this year, but I think moving forward, I don't think they're going to be anything to worry about. I mean, you got to think about it. No run game whatsoever. No Rice, no Worthy. Like, they are missing their offense. Their whole entire offense is basically missing, and you're relying on, age Travis Kelce. Mahomes can only do so much, and I'm not a fan of the Chiefs whatsoever. I'm actually happy to see this downfall, but you have to think about it. Um, they are missing a lot right now. The offense is not fun. It's no longer exciting to watch, kind of similar how we talked with Miami. They just have to figure it out. I think they figure it out today. I don't think their offense is going to look amazing. I think they're going to win this game, but I think the Giants defense bounces back this week. But I think once Kansas City gets everybody back and everybody healthy, we will continue to see them look more like what we're used to. But their thing is, if you lose tonight, and like I said, you go next week into Baltimore, you're sitting at 0-4. Your season is over with.
Over.
You probably still finish third in that division, but we already thought Denver was going to win it. Kind of later on topic. I'm kind of leaning Chargers right now.
Yeah.
But we already thought Kansas City would not win the division, and you're putting yourself in a deeper hole each and every week that you lose. I think they win today, but as far as the dynasty being completely over, no. But this season, we might not see the Chiefs in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. One thing now with the Broncos, quietly, the Broncos have been very overrated to open up. I mean, they barely beat the Titans, and then they lose to the Colts on just a killer way to lose a game. But that defense, there's no excuse for going out there and losing like that. And there's been, Bo Nix hasn't been that sharp. So quietly, or Broncos, while they are 1-1, and they have an opportunity today to go out and quiet everybody and beat the Chargers, they've quietly been very overrated to start. But yeah, like you said, they're more of a we can get into that at another time. I'm totally on board. I don't think it's the end of the dynasty because it's not like Mahomes is going to retire, after this game and it's over. But they'll be back. But in terms of the playoffs, I would put a lot of money on if they lose tonight, they're not making the playoffs. And I'll tell you why. History tells us they won't. The last time the Chiefs opened up a season 0-3 was 2011. Todd Haley was the coach. He ended up actually getting fired that year. They missed the playoffs. And the Chiefs all time, when they start a season 0-3, all time, they're 0-8 and making the playoffs. So they've started 0-3 8 times, never made the playoffs after that. I know a little bit different circumstances. None of those teams that started 0-3 had, Mahomes and had Andy Reid and had 3 Super Bowls in their back pocket. But still, it's 0-3 is a big, steep hill to climb with any team. This is kind of the time of the year where we already get the playoff projections, like percentage of teams that start 0-3 that make the playoffs. Next week, it'll be percentage of teams that are 0-4 that make the playoffs. And the Chiefs, you're going to start to see put into that bubble of teams if they lose tonight. And just losing to the Giants on primetime is just bad. And that's really bad for this Chiefs team. It's one thing to lose to the Chargers and Justin Herbert and to lose to the defending champions, but to lose to the Giants, that's bad. And I think the Chiefs are going to win tonight because I just don't see a world where they are 0-3. And I know they've looked really bad. But I mean, there's no way they're 0. There's no way they lose tonight. And I know a lot of people disagree, but I'm in that boat of I think the Chiefs are going to win tonight simply because they're just
Just
They're going to be
Giants.
desperate. It's the Giants. There's no way they're going to lose. And I'll tell you how tonight's game's going to go. Okay. I don't think they're going to blow them out. I don't. I'm going to tell you how tonight's game's going to go. I'm going to fast forward to 2 years ago when the Chiefs played in that stadium on Sunday night against the Jets. That was a close game. Michael Carter had that interception, and then right as he picked it off, only as the refs do, they threw the flag. They saw he intercepted the pass, and then they threw the flag. Jets ended up losing that game. That, to me, is exactly how tonight's going to go, where it's going to be a close game, and then late, it's going to be a bad flag or some crazy Mahomes play, and the Chiefs win the game, and the Giants lose. That's how I think it's going to go. I can just envision it.
Either that or my honest prediction here: Chiefs are on the ropes. Fourth quarter, Giants have the ball. They're marching. 56-yard field goal, doink it off the upright, and the Chiefs win.
Yeah, something like it'll be something crazy. One of them voodoo magic type of wins.
Absolutely.
Or they'll block it like they did against Denver.
Yeah.
And they'll be 1-2 and all that stuff. The league does not want the Chiefs to get to 0-3.
They don't. If they do, the viewership is going to go down. The Swifties are going to stop watching football. They don't want that to happen.
Yeah. But maybe that rallies the Giants. I don't know. The Giants, it's kind of like when you play the Chiefs on primetime, it feels like it's you against the world. Everybody's watching. It's a primetime spot. Everybody wants the Chiefs to win, except most people. Everyone's watching the Chiefs. Kelsey, Swift, that nonsense. Yeah, it's where we are as a football society, I guess. But I do think the Chiefs win. All right. Tomorrow, one quick one here, then we'll get into our underdog picks. Ravens, Lions, apologies, all over the place. Lions coming off of a 52-1 just domination of Ben Johnson. He was getting chirped leaving that stadium. And by the way, rightfully so. I did not like the whole Ben Johnson. I knew this whole Ben Johnson thing was going to fail. Number one, I don't think Caleb Williams is very good. I've said that from the start. Number two, Ben Johnson, when he went on to his opening press conference, he was already taking shots at Matt LaFleur and the Packers. And he has said a lot in the offseason and has backed up none of it. I got a good laugh out of Jared Goff putting up 5 touchdowns. And by the way, they didn't slow down. They didn't take Jared Goff out of the game. It was pure domination. As much as the Lions can say, oh, no, we weren't, no, there was definitely a sense of revenge going within the division, leaving the team, all that stuff. They just destroyed them. I also always get a good laugh whenever the Bears lose because it's just funny. Do you think the Lions can carry this into week number 3? They were awful in week 1. There was kind of a little bit of a sense of panic with Detroit where no Ben Johnson, no Aaron Glenn. They didn't look good. Oh, no. What, is this the end here? Or is this the beginning of like a down year with Detroit? Then they come back and put up 52. What are your expectations for tomorrow night?
I don't think they're going to look as good as they looked last week. I think that game was more trying to make a statement and embarrass Ben Johnson, but also just how bad the Bears are as a team up until today because they're going to find a way to beat Dallas. So I can already feel, I can sense it. But I don't know. I just don't see the Lions continuing to roll like they did last week. Then again, this is a Ravens defense that has not looked great, so this might be the chance to continue that. But I think for the Ravens, the Lions kind of just want to put it all together here. It's going to come down to who can run the ball more efficiently. That is who's going to win the game. Now, I know it's cliche. Who can control the line of scrimmage on both sides, whatever. But it's the truth. Whoever can run the ball more efficiently is going to win that game. If the Lions, they have to be strategic here where you don't want to score too quick and keep putting Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry on that field, but also You don't want to have these long drives where you come out with nothing because Baltimore can strike quick and you don't want to put your offense back. So it's going to be tough. Ultimately, I think the Ravens end up winning this game. The Lions are not going to look as great as they did last week, but I still think they score probably around 28, 30 points. They might have figured something out.
Yeah. It'll be this is it. One of the biggest things I'm looking for, because just covering the Lions perspective already, is what this Ravens rushing offense looks like, because last week it was terrible.
Yeah.
Against the Browns, it was very strange to see Derrick Henry go out there and run for 23 yards on 11 carries against the Cleveland Browns. That is correct. Although Lamar went out there and threw for 4 touchdowns, so it didn't matter. But yeah, I mean, you had a Lions team last week that as a team averaged just under 6 yards a carry, had 177 yards. Gibbs had that huge 42-yard run. You had the 2 touchdowns, Gibbs and Montgomery, that dynamic duo. I'm also looking again in this one, Jamison Williams, the just deep ball, 2 catches last week for 108 yards. Do we see that again in this one? It's funny. I actually thought about putting this as my underdog pick, but I just don't trust it enough. I do think there is a really good chance that the Lions win this game. I don't know, just something about last week, what they were able to do both on the ground, through the air. I feel like that was one of those, maybe not a get right. I guess it's a get right game already. But now it's like, okay, they got confidence. They can win with this new staff in a way, kind of move forward here. It's interesting because it's on the road, and Baltimore should be 2-0. Should be a 2-0 Baltimore team. Again, my Super Bowl pick just continues to look bad as I talk myself into the Lions winning over the Ravens. But anyway, underdog picks. Do you want to begin?
Yes. What was our records last week? I do not have it pulled up.
You were 3-0. I was 2-1. So
I was
I'm
3-0.
3-3 on the season. You're 4-2. You had Patriots +2, Falcons +3, and Buccaneers +2.5.
All one
So
outright.
yeah, all one outright. I had Patriots +2, Bucks +2.5, and of course, I took a really good swing on the Ravens or Browns +11.5, which was stupid. So I'm 2-1. That's all right though. That's we're moving right along here. Jeff Fisher is in mid-season form.
Right in a good spot. So that goes to show that I have been kind of on a heater when it comes to picking upsets, just as it is outright. The only one that I've lost from knowledge, not even just underdogs, but just football splits with my dad, parlays, whatnot. Jags and Bengals was the one upset that I missed, and that game came down to the wire. But I think that good luck continues today. I mentioned it earlier. I'm gonna go Rams +3.5 over Philly. I think the Rams actually win this one outright. Just got this gut feeling. This next one. Oh man. Texans +1.5. This is another one I think they win outright this week. I just don't trust Jacksonville too much, even though they looked good last week. I can't lie, they did look pretty decent. That game really came down to the drops from De'Ami Brown dropped the touchdown. I think Brian Thomas dropped the touchdown. Brian Thomas actually had 3 drops.
He's been terrible.
In that game.
Terrible.
And I'm a Brian Thomas fantasy owner, so it's been struggling to watch him. So I think he gets it going eventually, but this is going to be more about CJ Stroud and Nico Collins, I think, finally getting it together and finding that connection. So I like Texans +1.5 again. I think they went outright. And this last one is going to be Denver +2.5. I don't know if I'm feeling them outright this week, but you kind of mentioned it where this is kind of a game you want to go out and shut everybody up. Yes, they have not looked great, even though they should be 2-0. I mean, the unfortunate penalty at the end of the game last week for Denver could be sitting at 2-0. But if you want to kind of really cement yourself as a team that can win this division and make some noise later on in the playoffs, you got to beat this Chargers team that's been red hot, and probably the best defense in football. You can argue, but give me Broncos plus 2.5 today.
All right, I'm gonna agree with you. I'll start with the Texans. I'm also gonna take the Texans here, plus 1.5. I think they beat Jacksonville outright. I think Jacksonville, despite the whole Liam Cohen, Trevor Lawrence, little blow up there that everybody, of course, took and ran with, and putting up 27 points, it was against a bad Bengals defense.
Yeah.
Still have some issues with that receiver room. Brian Thomas Jr. has been awful. Some concerns there with him. Like I don't want to say and automatically say he's in a sophomore slump, but he just looks terrible right now. I mean, he's been terrible. No other way to put it. Maybe that's just a frustrated fantasy owner just starting to rant. But either way, I think I look at the Texans. They're desperate. I mean, they just let Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers go down and score on a game-winning drive in their own building. They no-showed offensively against the Rams. The way they lost last week. We talked about it this week about all the 0-3 teams. You're going to start to see, oh, you're 0-3. You don't, this is your chance of making the playoffs. This is a big game for a multitude of reasons. Not only that to avoid 0-3, but the Texans here quickly can get right back on track with a win today. I know it's a week-to-week league, but they got Tennessee next week at home. You win today, you beat Tennessee, all of a sudden you're 2-2 going to that Ravens game, and things look a lot differently for this Texans team. So they're going to be desperate. I think they go out and pick up a win today on the road. I'm going to go Bengals plus 3.5 in the backup quarterback bowl. Part of me didn't want to touch this game because Jake Browning and Carson Wentz, well, why would you trust either of those guys? But I'm going to go Bengals. Jake Browning actually, in the times he's had to come into for Joe Burrow, he hasn't been bad. That's why he's sticking around. That's why he's still there. To me, I just trust Jake Browning more than I do Carson Wentz. And I know this Bengals defense isn't very good, but I look at the Vikings right now. Their offense hasn't looked good with J.J. McCarthy. There's no chance it looks good with Carson Wentz, right? That's at least the way I'm approaching it. I think Wentz is completely like cooked. I've never been on the whole. I've never been a big Carson Wentz guy, and that's coming from a fan of a team that's been looking at bottom of the barrel quarterbacks for like the last 3 seasons for anybody to come on and start, during the whole Rodgers debacle with the injury and all that stuff. Never was a fan of Wentz. I'm going to take Jake Browning and the Bengals. Big game today, I think. I think they go out and win. And then I'm going to go Cardinals plus 2.5 on the road in San Francisco. This is an interesting one, or actually, I think it's now plus 1.5. Might have changed. Either way, though, I think they'll win outright. So I don't really think it from that perspective. I think they'll end up winning outright either way, but I guess it's now plus 1.5. So I'll change that. Or maybe it might have always been 1.5, but I made a mistake. No Brock Purdy again. Cardinals, we kind of mentioned it. They're probably the most uninspiring 2-0 team. They beat the Saints and beat the Panthers. But I'm sorry. I know it's on the road. It's in San Francisco. They've had some issues there in the past. And I know that Mac Jones actually played well last week. And that kind of goes on board with the whole Brock Purdy system quarterback thing because Mac Jones walks into Shanahan's system and throws 3 touchdowns and, nothing ever happened. But I don't know. Something about the Cardinals. I just think they're going to go in and win. I still don't trust Mac Jones. There's got to be like a dumb mistake that he makes today. So I'm going to go Arizona there. And I probably will regret that, but I'll go Arizona. Because I'm not touching the Lions Ravens. I just don't trust that game enough in either direction. And none of these other games I love. I had no chance I'm taking the Browns to cover 7.5. I'm never doing that again. So those are my underdog picks.
Truthfully, I almost took Jets plus was it 6.5. I almost took Jets plus 6.5 against Tampa. I know neither one of us have it, but I just think this is a week. Justin Fields bounces back. I mean, you look great in week 1. Week 2 looked awful. There's just no way that happens again, right? Tampa's defense is the defense that also, I know they kind of held their own last week against Houston, but Michael Penix torched that secondary in week 1. I think Garrett Wilson has a field day. I think Brees has a great day. If I had an honorable mention,
Well,
it's going to be Jets plus 6.5.
it'll actually be Tyrod out there today.
Oh, it is Tyrod. That's why I stayed
Yes.
away from it. Okay, that
Yes.
makes sense now. Justin Fields with the concussion it is.
But yes,
Yeah.
but I will say this. Bucks are banged up. 3 starters on their offensive line are out. Cody Malk, Luke Gedeke, and Tristan Wirfs, who's been out now. Godwin's still out. Emeka Buka dealing with the hip injury. Questionable. They think he'll play, but potentially on a pitch count. So yeah, the Bucks are banged up. The Jets also missing Jermaine Johnson, so they're a little bit banged up. The Bucks haven't played that well. They haven't, like you said. Falcons, it was close. It's a missed kick away from that game being completely different. And it took a game-winning drive against Houston. Just in general, you even just look at the numbers. They haven't been that good so far, but they found a way to win 2 games. They're on a short week. I'm hoping Tyrod can provide a little bit more of a passing game spark. I still don't think they'll win, though. So I think you're smart for not picking it. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like next week, if they're underdogs next week, I feel like you have to pick them. I don't know. No way they lose to the oh my god. If they lose to the 0-3 Dolphins, I'm terrible.
If they lose to the Dolphins next week, you might got to bring out the paper bag.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's,
I mean, if
that's,
they're
that's as low as it gets.
And then they lose next week and they're 0-4, forget about it. It's a disaster. And that's the thing though. Like if they win today and they win next week, you're 2-2. All of a sudden you're back on track here a little bit, and you get things going. So as always, Sunday morning, you always are hopeful. You know, you wake up and you're like, oh, I think we have a chance today. But deep down inside, I don't think we win. I think my score prediction was 27-17. I think they keep it close early, but I think Mayfield and the Bucks kind of late start to pull away. They kind of adjust to Tyrod, adjust to the offense, and I think late the Bucks just from I don't know. I don't want to say talent perspective because they're missing a lot, but I guess more so just Baker late in the game. I think he's going to start to pull away and make some plays.
Well, I'm going to give you a land of what ifs here. I'm going to give you some false hope, some false promises.
I think I know where this is going.
All right, just say Jets are sitting at 2-2.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Buffalo wins that division. Cincinnati's not making playoffs. I mean, Burrow out for 3 months it could be. Since he's not making the playoffs, we already talked about the Chiefs possibly missing out. Broncos and Chargers get in. Ravens get in. Bills get in. We might be looking at Houston and the Colts both getting in. That leaves room for one more. And if the Jets can figure it out, we can see some Jets football in the playoffs.
Yes, because
you got to figure it out.
With the way the AFC West is shaping out, it's only looking like 2 teams. You're going to have 2 teams from the North because I don't think Pittsburgh, well, maybe only 1 team from the North. If you're not on board with Cincy.
I'm thinking 1. Baltimore.
Yeah, I don't think Pittsburgh will make it. I don't think Cleveland made it. And we both were on that at the beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Cincy, I'm still waiting on that because if they can be like around 500 by the time Burrow comes back for, let's say, the final 3 to 4 games, that does give them a chance to run the table and get in. But yeah, I mean, then 2 from the South, if you only get 1 from the North, or even if the Colts fall off, because it's only 2 weeks of Daniel Jones. I'm rooting for Daniel Jones today. I got him in the fantasy team, but there's still deep down inside, there's no chance this continues all year, but maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe their offenses look good. I mean, this is last week we said there's no way in the world Daniel Jones goes out there and looks good against Denver. I debated taking his under on passing yards. So he do for 300? I don't remember the number exactly. I just know he lit up that Denver team. And I'm just like, is this the resurgence? Are we seeing another Baker Mayfield, another last year Sam Darnold? Or is it just the Giants curse? Is it just the Giants are just that bad as an organization where if you go there, your career as a quarterback is over? It could be a lot of things. It's something we could get into later on this year. But it seems like Daniel Jones might have figured it out.
Yeah. And you know what? Good for him. I'd be happy for him. It'd be great just to dunk on all the Giants fans around here, although I can't say much as a Jet fan because Sam Darnold finally found his resurgence. I guess maybe I don't know. I mean, he played well last week, but I mean, what the heck? Who was it? It was who? Oh my god, I'm forgetting the name. We got to end out here in a second anyway. The Steelers running back last week that
Oh, Caleb
didn't know
Johnson
what.
better never touch
Yes,
another football in his life. He lost me a lot of money last week. Caleb
what are
Johnson
you
not knowing the
doing?
rules.
What is he doing? And that's the funny part. And I know we got to go here. We're an hour 20 in and kick off here in about an hour. But, you hear a lot of fans yell at coaching, yell at Tomlin and all that stuff last week. And you want to criticize the defense, fine. I mean, Sam Darnold, they were moving up and down the field. Rodgers didn't play well either. He looked awful, which isn't much of a surprise. He's cooked. But anyway, the whole Steelers thing, or what was it? Tyler John? Who was it? Caleb Johnson. Yes, from Iowa. That's not even coaching. Like, that is
Stupid.
Do you have to coach them to say, oh, you gotta get the football on a kickoff? Like,
It's
so
it's
stupid.
it's almost like these guys practiced all year. Well, not all year, but training camp, OTAs, all that stuff where you do a special teams period.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Caleb Johnson. Yes, he lost a lot of people money last week, I'm sure. Anyway, that'll do it. We'll be back next week. Enjoy your Sunday and talk to you soon.